Okay. Hi everyone, I think we can start. Thanks for joining our webinar today. We have decided to host this webinar to share some, let's say, practical insights about CRA for the agricultural market, to help you to have a more clear picture of what is required by the regulation. It should last 20 to 25 minutes, more or less. I'll try to be as fast as possible, and then I'll pass the floor to you for Q&A session with our experts as well. So you can type the question in the Q&A section here on Teams. So let's start from the beginning. So from the $1 million question. So why CRA? Why CRA and not maybe UNECE R155, for example, which is the automotive regulation? Since the tractors actually have 4 wheels and engine like cars. The reasons behind this choice are several, starting from mainly from their use case. Of course, the machineries are used in the field and not on the road. And when they are in the road, maybe they're just using the road to reach the off-road side. In addition, there is an high fragmentation of machinery types, and even an high fragmentation of manufacturers, and there are more than 7,000 in Europe. And averagely speaking, the number of employee part of any manufacturer is around 20 to 21 people. So if compared with the automotive sector, is something completely different. In addition, the machineries are even highly customized, and the production is quite low. So even the company that produce more tractors is producing less than 10,000 tractors per year. In addition, there's an high interconnection among the machineries. And of course, it was quite complicated to test all the possible combination. So for this reason, has been chosen the CRA as a unique legislation for all the machineries. On the other hand, I can understand your complaint about the application of the CRA, which may result very quite loose, because of course we know that the CRA is applied to a very wide range of digital products. What we can say is that the agri-tech sector is developing its own dedicated framework. The framework is called ISO 24882, and even if in this moment it's in a draft status, so it's not been officially released, we can say that probably it will become an harmonized standard for the CRA. But since we don't have any confirmation for the moment, I I'd prefer to avoid adding speculation on this. So let's move to the timeline. Let's move to the timeline. I think we are almost all familiar with this timeline. So the deadline are quite. I hope they are quite clear in our mind. What we would like to add, which is not reported here, but what we would like to add, since we are part of the technical committee, we would like to add some information about the availability of the harmonized standards. What we can say is that the horizontal harmonized standards will probably be available from fall this year, while the verticals one will be available from fall the next year. So since these harmonized standards will not be available shortly, we recommend the manufacturer to start preparing now to ensure the compliance with the regulation, or at least let me say to get ready, so they won't be caught off guard when the CRA will come into effect. At Drivesec, we understand that this moment of uncertainty, where it's not very clear maybe what to do because the regulation has not been, I mean, it's not clear in any point. But what we can say from our side is that we have built an extensive experience with many different EU regulations. This means that we know how to apply a common approach to help you to structure your work since today, and then when a more appropriate harmonized standard or a more appropriate definition will come into force, you will be ready to refine the job done so far, and I mean, to have something much more some work that fit a bit more. There is another question, very important, which is what does the CRA apply to? Because we know that the CRA applies only to products with digital elements. I've reported here a very short definition. The digital element, so product with digital element, is any product which includes software, which include hardware, or even only the remote data processing capability. A very important point is that this product must be connected. It means that a digital product standalone without any kind of correlation and interaction with other products is not in the scope of the CRA. And in this table below, we want to give you some practical overview, reporting the most relevant section. All the products with digital elements under the CRA are divided into 4 classes based on how severe the cybersecurity impact would be if the product were compromised. So they start from default, they go through important class 1 and 2, and eventually the critical. In the second column, we added the article that describe the class. So Article 7 describes important class 1 and 2, and the Article 8 describes the critical one. In the Annex 3 are listed all the products that are part of the important class 1 and 2. And in the Annex 4 are listed all the product part of critical. So by definition, whatever is not included in the Annex 3 and 4 has to be considered default. In the third column, we have reported the conformity assessment. The conformity assessment is actually the procedure that the manufacturer decide to follow to demonstrate the compliance to the CRA. We will have a specific slide on this to go through all the possibilities. It's important to tell you that whatever you need to know is included in the Article 32.1 for default, 234 for the other. And while the Annex 8 set out the procedure to follow. So whatever you need to do is included in the Annex 8. In the last column, we have decided to report some example of products that fall into the different classes. So as we said before, whatever is not included in the Annex 3 and 4 has to be considered as default. So smart tractors, harvester, drones, whatever. Of course, in this case, we are just considering example of agri-tech sector. So drones for agri-tech usage. I mean, maybe they are used for, I don't know, for crop monitoring, for example. If you use a drone for another use case, maybe it is not in the default. Then, for example, the gateways can be considered important class 1, and a secure gateway with a function of firewall can be considered as important class 2. So let's move now to the obligation to the manufacturer. In this case, we are talking about the Article 13. So far we have seen Article 6, 7, 8, and 32, and the Annex 3 and 4 and 8. What is important to remark over here are the obligation to the manufacturer. So what the manufacturer have to do. The Annex 1 is the most important document. In the Annex 1 are listed all the essential cybersecurity requirements. It means that if your product, any kind of requirement applicable to your product must be included in your development, because one of the points, for example, is that the product must be secured by default. So whatever is included that is applicable to your product must be included, even considering the use cases. So the second point is risk assessment. The risk assessment highlights the potential risk based on the usage of your product, and so it's another super important point to be included to work with. CRA is not only product, but it's even processes. So in the Annex 1 are present as well the vulnerability handling requirements. So whatever are the policies and procedures to address vulnerabilities, they must be included. They are super important, including the coordinating disclosure policies. Another article, I decided to add it here, another article, which is the Article 14. I decided this because it will be mandatory to implement the Article 14 by September this year. So it's about reporting the vulnerabilities, reporting attack, and whatever. Another important point is about choosing and following the right conformity assessment procedure, and it's in the next slide, and prepare the more appropriate technical documentation. Even in this case, there is a specific slide with this. Then it's important to issue an EU declaration of conformity and affix the CE marking, and provide support for at least 5 years. Last point, you have to ensure security update available for at least 10 years. So even if you are no longer releasing software update, they must be available for 10 years for download for someone who needs to maybe update his own product and he didn't do before. Let's move now to the conformity assessment. So the conformity assessment, as we said before, is described in the article 32. And there are different procedures that can be followed by in base of the different product. So the risk related to any product. With this first column, we are talking about internal control procedure, which are included in the module A. So the manufacturer with the default product can issue a self-declaration, as outlined in the module 8, following an internal control procedure, which is something that is not regulated. So actually, the regulation is saying that you can do whatever you consider enough to demonstrate the compliance to the regulation. You can even use a different scheme, so even the ISO 21434 if you want, but as long as it matches the minimum requirements of the CRA. Unfortunately, it does not confer a presumption of conformity. The presumption of conformity is something that is guaranteed only if you follow a recognized standard. Since in this case, the regulation is giving you the freedom to choose whatever you want, you actually is not automatically this passage. The presumption of conformity becomes, let me say, possible with an harmonized standard, for example. As I said before, in Drivesec, we can help you in this moment of uncertainty, and thanks to the wider experience that we have gained across the multiple European regulation and market, we can propose an approach that you can effectively implement within your organization in order to fulfill the requirements of the standard. In this fourth column, we are introducing the harmonized standard. The harmonized standard actually are technical rules. Generally, they are requested from the European Commission, and they are developed by associations like Senelec and ETSI, and we are part of them. So we take part to the technical committee of this association. These rules are super important because they give you automatically the compliance to the regulation if you follow every single point of the harmonized standard. So what we are saying here is that the harmonized standard will be applicable to all the different classes. Only the module A, so the module A for the self-declaration is allowed just for the default and the important class 1 product. We said that it is not mandatory for the default because actually you can even use an internal control procedure. So just this. Then we see the last two columns, which are related to mainly the important class 2 and critical products. In this way, actually, if you have a product in an important class 2 or critical, you can follow the harmonized standards if you want, but in any case, you have to pass through an external body, so a third-party assessment, a notified body. You will have to fill in the module B and C, and they will give you the approval to apply the CA marking on your product. In the last column, we have reported an option which we suggested only to the biggest organization, because actually with a full quality assurance, the manufacturer does not certify any single product, but instead they can certify the entire quality and cybersecurity management system. Of course, it is carried out by a third party, so from a notified body, but it's time saving because once you have certified completely your quality and cybersecurity management system, you can actually avoid to pass through a third-party evaluation for any product that you are putting on the market. Let's now move to the technical documentation. So what to do? What we have to do? In the Annex 7 is defined the technical documentation that the manufacturer must prepare to demonstrate that their products complies with the CRA. So to classify the product is, of course, super important to understand which is what you have to do. Is necessary a product description, then to perform a risk assessment. The third point is about the cybersecurity requirements which are applicable from the Annex 1 to your product. You have to include even the processes that you have implemented about the vulnerability handling and disclosure. So we have reported some example like vulnerability monitoring and the coordinated vulnerability disclosure, the remediation, the secure update. Then you have to work with, you have to develop the user instructions, declaration of conformity, CA marking. Then, if applicable, the software BOM. If you have used an harmonized standard, you have to include the harmonized standard as well. And then finally, the test report. So the test report is quite important because it demonstrates that what you have done. So any kind of remediation, any kind of feature, cybersecurity feature that you have implemented is actually giving an high resiliency to your product, so the ability to react to the cyber attack. And we are about to going to the end of this webinar. We just wanted to tell you that actually in Drivesec we have developed a few work packages that can support you in achieving the compliance to the regulation. So they are divided in phases. We start from the process development, then we will pass through system analysis and the product engineering. And so in that case, we will, and at the end, we will be able to generate technical documentation and then to support you even with the on-field operation. If you need more information, then we can give you more information offline. It's not only about that because Drivesec is investing the last year to create a product that will help the manufacturer to automate the test related to the cybersecurity. So we have developed Weseth. Weseth is a system composed of a box and on-cloud solution. We are already using this tool with another regulation, which is called RED, so Red Equipment Directive, and it already has an harmonized standard which is called ISO 18031. So actually, we are already working with this solution. This solution is very interesting because it can be connected to any kind of device, which could be an ECU, it could be a full tractor, for example, or an harvester, a combined harvester, for example, or even a single component, maybe through a JTAG. So we connect it with a physical interface, and thanks to a 4G modem included within the box, you can interact with your product through intuitive and user-friendly interface that you can see here on the right, here in the page on the right, and then you can select the test that here are reported. We are showing the test with these cards. So for any card there is a test. Any test is connected, is related to a specific asset of the rule. So you can actually select the test you want to run, and you can run the test. The test will tell you if it's passed or not. And so you can generate even a test report, and it can be very strong and consistent in demonstrating your compliance to the regulation. So I've finished with the slides. I would give you the word if you want to make some question.
Okay.
Andrea Perno is joining me in this phase. He is our responsible of for the CRA, so he will answer our question, your question.
Thank you, Andrea. I can start with some questions that I can see in the Q&A section. First, vulnerability reporting obligations are mandatory from 11th of September of this year. Is vulnerability fixing included in these obligations? Okay, so the CRA imposes some vulnerability handling requirements for product with digital elements. When you become aware of exploited vulnerabilities or a severe incident that have an impact on the security of the product, you are obliged to notify to the ENISA. ENISA is the European entity that manages the cybersecurity at European level. So for products that are subject to the CRA after the 11th of September 2027, you have to address all the vulnerability and provide security patches. But for products that are placed on the market before the 11th of September 2027, only the reporting obligations are mandatory. So you are not obliged to provide security patches. So only vulnerability reporting. Then, second questions. Product placed on the market before 11th September 2027 are not subject to the CRA, product obligation, and vulnerability handling, as we have just said. But they became subject to the CRA in case they are substantially modified, after that date. What is intended as a substantial modification. So this is a hot point for the CRA because the CRA is not retroactive. So all the product placed on the market before December 2027 are not subject to the CRA, and they will not be subject in the future. But there's a but. If you should modify the product by inserting some new features or introduce some capabilities that introduce new risks, that is considered a substantial modification. So you have to update the CRA documentation, or in case you haven't done it before, you have to newly certify your product, even if it was placed on the market before December 2027. So this is a kind of requirements to put your attention, because it's possible to do not certify a product with the CRA before December 2027, but you have to be aware that future modification could require you to certify for the CRA. So better start with time. Okay, I don't see any new questions.
We can leave maybe a few minutes if someone is thinking about a question. He can write it.
Okay, we have a new one. How do the cybersecurity risk management obligation introduced by the EU machinery regulation align or overlap with the requirements of the Cyber Resilience Act, particularly in terms of risk assessment, secure design, and life cycle management? Okay, there are many overlapping with these two regulations. In the EU standardization process, they are aware of all these regulations that are partially overlapped. So probably many actual regulation like the the machinery regulation, the RED directive, and industrial cybersecurity will be used as guidelines to assess the conformity to the Cyber Resilience Act, and and there will be provided some guidelines to partially reuse the work that you have already done for the CRA compliancy. In particular, the machinery regulation states, for what concerns the cybersecurity, put the focus on the integrity of the code and the safety of the product. One possible one possible point of overlapping is the integrity of the code, because the CRA does not address the safety. It's mainly for cybersecurity and ICT. But a document of risk assessment, a process for secure design and lifecycle management already implemented inside your company will be a good start pointing for the conformity assessment for the CRA, of course. Okay, do you have any recent update on visibility on the development status and anticipated scope of this 24882, particularly in relation to the cybersecurity risk management requirements, and how it is expected to align with the diverge from ISO 21434 in terms of lifecycle processes and risk assessment methodologies? Okay, so the 24882 is the draft standard regulation for cybersecurity in agriculture. It's still on development, and we can think that the life cycle, the product life cycle management and the cybersecurity risk management will be mainly aligned to the state of the art that is described inside the CRA. For what concerned the ISO 21434, the processes described and required by this ISO will be a good starting point. We should have to mainly adapt small things and create a documentation that is aligned to what the CRA is requiring. Just a point, the products which requires the ISO 21434 are mainly subject to the UNECE R155 that are excluded from the application of the CRA. So if you have some processes based on the ISO 21434 but that are not required by the UNECE regulation, we can still reuse it and adapt to what the CRA is requiring.
Okay, since I don't see any other question, I would like to thank you for your time. I hope you have enjoyed this session and you find it fruitful for your application of the rule and your next step. If you need any specific question or you want to go more in deep with some specific topic, don't be afraid to reach me out and we can set a specific meeting to discuss about that. So thank you very much, and I hope to see you soon.